Okay, good morning. It is 10:02 and we'll go ahead and get this meeting started. If any members come on later, we'll go ahead and introduce them at that time, but we'll just go ahead and get going. Welcome to the October 23rd, 2024 Cemetery and Funeral Bureau Advisory Committee meeting. My name is Gina Sanchez. I am the Bureau Chief. Before we begin and take roll call, I'd like to thank everyone for being here and joining in this hybrid meeting. As stated in the agenda, the public location is here at CFB headquarters in Sacramento, and our virtual option is via WebEx. Virtual parties interested in participating in the meeting may make public comment. They must have mic ability through their computer. If you do not have mic ability through your computer and like to make comment, there's also a phone call-in option to make public comment. All lines are currently on mute, and as the meeting progresses through the agenda, the lines will remain on mute until I ask for comment. The link to join the WebEx event along with the call-in information is available on the agenda, which you can find on CFB's Advisory Committee webpage. That page is found on the Quick Hit section on the right side of our website, csb.ca.gov or .gov. After each agenda item has been presented, I will ask for discussion. If you have any comments or questions, please just press the small hand icon on your screen, members, and either myself or David, if I don't see it, will call on you. After that, we'll do public comment period, where the moderator will open it up for public comments. And this approach is necessary to facilitate the meeting and to ensure the Bureau can complete its necessary business. Again, I appreciate everyone's understanding and patience as we navigate our hybrid meeting. Before we get started, moderator, did you have any other general instructions you would like to mention?
Absolutely. For public comment, we're going to ask people to raise their hand by tapping the hand button at the bottom of the screen. For dial-in users, that means dialing *3 to raise a hand. And for our mobile device users, you have 3 different screens and only one of them has a hand button, so you may need to hit the ellipses button. That's the ... in order to find your hand. We're going to give people 3 minutes to speak,
open up at the bottom.
And I'll give people a 15-second warning before time expires. Back to you.
And you can make multiple comments in a row if, you can speak twice on the same comment. We're not limiting that at all. So at this point, I'd like to do roll call. Committee members, once I call your name, please unmute your line and just let us know you are here. Ms. Margaret McMillan.
Good morning, and I apologize, my camera is off. I had to lend out my computer, but I am happy to be here.
We are happy you're here too, thank you. Okay, Reverend Jason Bency.
Present.
Thank you, and Ms. Jean Okui.
Here.
Okay, from what I see on the list, that are the only members that have currently joined, so that is fine. Again, I want to thank each of you for your dedication to this committee meeting. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted on YouTube and linked to our website at a later date. We're going to move to public comment on items not on the agenda. So moving to agenda item 2, at this time, I'd like to take public comment for items not on the agenda. Also, neither committee members nor the Bureau staff may comment on what is said during the public comment period, as stated in detail on your screen and on the agenda. If there is anybody in the audience who would like to make public comment about issues that are not on our agenda, you may do so at this time. Go ahead, moderator.
Just confirming that there is no public member in the room.
There is one public member in the room, but he does not have a public comment at this time.
All right, thank you. Then in that case, we are open for public comment via WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment for items not on the agenda, please raise a hand. Again, for dial-in users, dial *3 to raise a hand. And for mobile device users, if you're having trouble finding that hand button, please click the ... that's your ellipses button, and cycle through the 3 different pages in order to find your hand. We're going to take just a few more seconds to see if we have a request for items not on the agenda. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you. All right, so we'll move to agenda item number 3. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to our department liaison from the Executive Office of the Department of Consumer Affairs. Yes, Ms. Moreno.
Morning, my name is Karina Moreno of the California Department of Consumer Affairs. Thank you for the opportunity to join you today. I'd like to congratulate the Bureau on a successful sunset review and thank all members who serve to protect the public. New Business and Travel Expense Reimbursement Program. The state's Department of Human Resources, also known as CalHR, recently released an updated travel policy to align with federal policies outlined by the U.S. General Services Administration. Effective October 1st, 2024, DCA will use the federal standard meals and incidental expense rates for the in-state and out-of-state travel. DCA will also use the federal standard and non-standard reimbursement lodging rates. Information on these changes was shared with the board leaders at the end of September. Board and Bureau members are encouraged to become familiar with the new travel expense reimbursement program and rates. Please contact Board and Bureau Relations with any questions regarding these changes. Next is a DEI update. DCA's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion DEI Steering Committee will meet on October 25th, 2024. The committee will elect a chair and vice chair, discuss language access and workforce development, and review the DEI committee's membership application. New unconscious bias training for board members. I am excited to share that DCA is updating its current unveiling unconscious bias training to specifically focus on board and bureau members, your critical roles, and how unconscious bias can affect your decision-making authority. The training will be self-paced and available in DCA's Learning Management System, LMS. We anticipate launching this new training in early 2025, and board members must take it annually. As a reminder, DCA offers over 20 online DEI training courses in its learning management system. While these courses are not mandatory, board and bureau members and board leaders are strongly encouraged to take these trainings as you are instrumental in leading department-wide change. Our Promise campaign launch, State Employees Giving at Work campaign. Every year, state employees join together to pledge their support of nonprofits that provide critical services to our communities. As you may remember, this annual giving campaign is called Our Promise. From October through December 31st, employees and board members can give a one-time donation or a monthly payroll deduction to a nonprofit of their choice. These contributions have a positive impact by providing vital resources to those experiencing poverty, homelessness, and food insecurity, and offering other support to causes such as veterans, animals, and environment, and more. This year's DCA's Our Promise efforts will be led by Monica Vargas, Deputy Director of Communications, and Karen Navarro, Assistant Deputy Director of Communications. Be on the lookout for the official Our Promise launch announcement soon. In the meantime, please contact Board and Bureau Relations with any questions. Again, thank you for the opportunity to join you today. I'm happy to answer any questions from the advisory committee.
Thank you very much for your presentation. We always appreciate hearing what's going on with the Department of Consumer Affairs. The Bureau staff has taken advantage of several of the DEI trainings, and we look forward to the next revamped unconscious bias training. Those are always very, very interesting to go through. You learn a little bit about yourself as well. So thank you very much for that. Do we have any, before we go into public comment, I would like to welcome Jolina Grande. Can you just say here or present so we know that your mic is working, Jolina?
I am here. I am glad to be present, and I apologize for my tardiness. My computer automatically did an update just as soon as I launched our WebEx event, so I'm sorry for my tardiness.
That is all right. We appreciate you taking your time out of your day today to be with us. So moving on to public committee comment, is there any comments from the committee for the department? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to public comment. There's no public comment in here at Sacramento, so I'll pass it over to you, moderator.
All right, we are open for public comment on agenda item 3, update from the Department of Consumer Affairs. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of your screen. For our mobile device users, if you're having trouble finding that hand button, you may need to hit the ellipses button, that's the ... and cycle through the 3 different pages in order to find your hand. We're going to take just a few more seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, please. Okay, moving on to agenda item 4. This is always our kind of heavy item because we have, you know, A through E, I think this time, yes. So what we're going to do is the presenters will provide an update on each topic that's listed in the agenda, A through E. Please, committee members, press the hand raise button if you have any questions on any of these topics as we go through them. However, after the final presentation on item 4E, I will pause for committee member comment and then ask for public comments. So starting with A, the CFB Strategic Plan 24-28. I'm very excited to announce that this plan has been completed. It will be posted to our website this week, but I will be going through the objectives, and we did change our new mission. So right here, our mission, we did update that with this strategic plan. I'll go ahead and read it. The Cemetery and Funeral Bureau safeguards consumers by licensing and regulating the death care industry through policies and practices that protect the health, safety, and general welfare of Californians. Our vision did stay the same. We thought it was kind of spot on. California consumers are empowered to make informed end-of-life decisions in a fair and ethical marketplace. Also, our values, we did add accessibility into our values. We have accountability, collaboration, compassion, equity, and transparency. Now, once it's posted on our website, I did want to say real quick also that we will be doing a email blast and a Facebook post to let the industry and the stakeholders know that it's been posted. Let's move to the next slide. Our first goal, which is pretty standard for us, is licensing. And the Bureau administers licensing standards to ensure only qualified applicants enter and maintain licensure within the profession. Each one of these 1.1 through 1.4 are our objectives on how we're going to achieve this goal by 2028. We'll move on to goal number 2 for enforcement. The Bureau protects consumers through the enforcement of the laws and regulations governing the profession. And again, we have 4 separate objectives to meet that goal for our enforcement goal. As you can kind of tell, I've cut and pasted from our actual plan what it looks like. So our plan is this beautiful. The department's publications team did a great job on making this come to life. So that's why the goal of licensing is in that white background, enforcement's white background, and I think licensing was gray. Moving on to goal 3, this is also the same goal as last time. We're just different objectives to further our legislation and regulations goals. The Bureau administers statutes and pursues regulations that strengthen and support its mission. And we have 3 objectives for us to complete. I'm not going to read them all. This PowerPoint presentation is also available on the website under the advisory committee page if you want to spend more time reading each one. Goal 4 is our outreach and communication. This is a big part of the Bureau. The Bureau provides resources and educational information to stakeholders relating to the regulation and operation of the death care industry. There's 4 objectives that we have there, expanding, efforts and increasing communications there. Our last goal is goal 5 under administration. Administration, that's in relation to our staff and our internal workings and processes on how we can meet all the rest of the goals. So the Bureau builds an excellent organization through proper governance, effective leadership, and responsible management. And we have 5 objectives there to work through over these next 4 years. That kind of high level goes over our strategic plan. I just want to thank the department, their solid training process. I would love to thank our committee members for participating in the environmental scan, making this roadmap for our next 5 years. I think that it's been a very successful roadmap, and we're excited to start doing these objectives. Jolene, I see your hand up.
Thank you very much. And thank you for allowing us to participate in the process for which this new strategic plan was being drafted, developed, and vetted. And I really do want to champion each of these phenomenal goals that are set out, so much so that I would love to suggest, if in future advisory committee meetings on an annualized basis or more often, that we might see a standing agenda item as to an update on what we've achieved underneath these particular goals and objectives, because they are lofty, they are ambitious, but they are incredibly attainable. And to be able to demonstrate to the consuming population of individuals that the Cemetery and Funeral Bureau is working day in and day out for consumer protection, to make sure that licensees are getting what they need in order to practice appropriately, and that more than anything, that the work that's being done by the State of California Department of Consumer Affairs is incredibly accessible and transparent.
I think that is a great idea. We've been provided a great action plan tracking log to make sure that we are achieving these. So that would be very easy to do, is to put it on a future agenda item, just to let everyone know how we're doing. I think that's a great idea. Thank you. Okay, moving on to staffing. So this comes with a little bit of sadness for me. The good news, we'll start with the good news. The good news is that CFB is fully staffed. So that's been great. We've been fully staffed for at least 6 months, I would say. Has Jeffrey been here 6 months? 4 to 6 months, and that's been great. The training of anyone that we've filled has been very successful. However, I would like to mention that we have a couple. I'm getting teary, Carolina, because it's the first time I'm mentioning it publicly. I would like to mention that we have a couple of hard-earned retirements coming up. First and foremost, our legislation and regulation analyst, Carolina Sammons. She attends all these AC meetings with me. She's our legislative and regulatory analyst, however, wears many other hats at the Bureau. And gosh, so after dedicating 37 years to the state of California, to this beautiful state, 28 of which were with the department's Bureau of Automotive Repair, and the last 9 were solely dedicated to the CFB. Carolina will be retiring as of March of next year. However, since our next meeting's not till May, this will be her last advisory committee meeting. I want to thank you, Carolina, for your exemplary employee. You are an exemplary employee. You reflect our mission and values in all you do. And I sincerely hope you enjoy your hard-earned retirement. So, thank you. I won't make you do a speech in public like this. You're very welcome. They're very well earned. Secondly, we have Stephen Kalk. He has performed inspections and investigations for the Bureau for the past 22 years. CFB has been his only state job. Prior, he served in the industry and the Air Force. He is a veteran. He has actively protected consumers and Californians his entire working career, and we are all so appreciative of it. Steve will be retiring at the end of this year. Both will be very much missed, but we will have to recruit and fill your positions. So you will be seeing that coming through either email blasts or Facebook posts once we get those recruitments out. So I just want to thank you. Well, thank you, Steve, very much for all of your time and dedication to CFB. Okay, we'll move on to letter C, our budget. As part of the meeting materials, there is also a fund condition. This fund condition, just as a reminder, this is a snapshot in time. The Bureau ended, you can see in the very first column, it says pre-actuals. That's because 23-24 fiscal year is not completely closed in the books, but this is, it's very close. So we collected close to $6.6 million in total revenue, and it is expected in 24-25 that we'll be collecting almost $6.8 million total revenue. The total expenditures, scrolling down a little bit, for 22-23 were approximately 7.5, you'll see. However, it is expected to decrease this fiscal year down to 7.2. And again, that's if the Bureau fully expends its budget. Last year, we did have some high enforcement costs that we do not expect to incur this year. So that is one reason for the amount to go down. You'll see that it does increase in the following years. David, are you able to scroll down just a little bit on that page?
Hold on.
Sorry,
Currently
moderator.
it sets, so everyone is expected to scroll on their own. Give me just a second.
That's fine.
Am I
didn't know that
scrolling
that
for
was
you now?
possible. I just want to make sure people could follow me.
Am I scrolling for you now?
Nope. No,
All
but if
right.
they have that power, I think that's fine. So the Bureau has historically been conservative in our spending, so it is anticipated we will not fully expend each year's budget and will have carryover from the previous year. That is what then pushes out our months in reserve, because as of right now, we see 26, 27 is the year that we're going insolvent. But as we've seen over multiple meetings, that does keep just getting pushed out as we have carryover from the previous years. So a few things to note on a fund condition. One of the main factors that are driving expenditure increases in future years is the result of the personal service adjustments. So what that means is our general salary increases, like employee compensation, and retirement rate adjustments. Additionally, in the outgoing years, the budget office includes a 3% increase in expenditures on future projected years to account for these ongoing incremental adjustments. The fund condition does not include increased enforcement expenditures, which could create additional cross pressures to the Bureau's fund, which is what we saw last fiscal year. The budget office will continue to work with the Bureau on any future resource needs. And it is expected also that the fund, that the months in reserve will always go down as we project revenues to remain consistent, but expenditures to increase by 3%. So as we see, each fund condition kind of pushes out that months in reserve. But again, we'll be in close conversations with the budget office, as well as I have a budget analyst here at CSC that will continue to watch our funds very closely. And we still obviously will remain very conservative in our spending. I don't have any really large expenditures that I foresee at this moment to share with you. Okay, so moving on to D, moving on to business modernization. I'm going to turn it over to Sandra Patterson, our Deputy Chief, for her update on our BizMod project, which we know and love as CSB Connect.
Thank you, Chief Sanchez, for the opportunity to provide an update on the Bureau's Business Modernization Project, or BizMod for short. For the last 3 years, the Bureau has been working closely with the Department's Office of Information Services and Organizational Improvement Office, among others, to move from the Bureau's antiquated IT system to a platform that allows for the online submission of applications and reports and electronic payments, which better meets the needs of the Bureau and its stakeholders. The new database, called CSB Connect, went live in May of 2023. As previously reported, the Bureau released the following applications: the Funeral Director application and the original Funeral Establishment application. Since our last advisory committee meeting, we have since released the Cemetery Manager application, Crematory Manager application, and cemetery salesperson application. The Bureau is actively working towards the release of additional initial licensure applications for both personal and business licenses, as well as the release of license maintenance applications. CFB expects the next few releases to include the change of manager, corporate officer or trustee, quarterly reporting, and the consumer complaint form. Moving to the new CFB Connect system has been a big undertaking and has not come without expected and unexpected issues and delays. Some of these issues or delays included the transfer of data from our PSI system, which is our testing vendor for the California law exam, which is required for personal licenses, and the CFB Connect system, which included primarily the eligibility for exam not showing in the Connect system. And that issue has been resolved. Duplicate profiles, missing tabs, which would causing an inability to upload documents for paper application submissions, and those also have been resolved. Additionally, the use of multiple systems by staff will need to continue in the CFB Connect system and our previous system until all applications have been converted and are being reported in CFB Connect. As the Bureau transitions towards a more efficient electronic business practices, and as more applications are released online, the paper applications will eventually be removed from the Bureau's website and will only be made available upon request. The fastest method to licensure is to apply online in CFB Connect and submit all the fees at one time. For example, the funeral director application has both an application and examination fee of $190 and a license fee of $380, totaling $570. Paying these fees online together rather than separately or with a partial check and partial credit card payment will allow the license to issue faster. During this time of transition, it is expected that the Bureau's processing times, including enforcement timeframes, may temporarily increase. However, the Bureau is tracking this closely and diligently progressing through the work to prevent any extended processing times. It is expected once the BizMod process is completed, timeframes will return to our performance goals. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sandra. This is wonderful to hear that we've gotten 3 additional applications on. We'll be doing some outreach on those. We kind of did a soft launch, making sure it was all, each one of them actually, we kind of do a soft launch, make sure everything's working and such before we do a big push of outreach. I wanted to say really quickly, the cemetery salesperson application was online previously. It was through a platform called SimplyGov. It was there, linked on our website. However, now that link for salesperson will take you directly to Connect. So we've moved it from one electronic to another, which is actually much more beneficial because although it was electronic for the applicant, it came to us in an email. We still had to key everything in. You just kind of missed that, the mailing and the cashiering part of it, which did speed it up, which was great. But now, you know, you're fully in Connect for salesperson.
And I would add too, as we do each of these releases, and as Gina stated, we do kind of a soft release to make sure everything is working properly before we start doing outreach and letting stakeholders know that this is available online. So we want to make sure everything's running smoothly first.
Yeah. Jolene, I see your hand.
I just want to give huge accolades, incredible compliments, and appreciation for the additional online applications that have migrated recently. This is such a huge level of efficiency from the Cemetery and Funeral Bureau, and I appreciate it immensely. And just one question for Sandra regarding one of the statements she made in terms of efficiency in applying for both the examination and license and making full payment. Is that messaging out there on the website so that candidates understand you can submit both of these simultaneously, and it is going to make your life so much easier because this will allow us to more promptly issue the personal license. I normally will say that to people who inquire about it, but I'm just wondering, is that message getting out via these portals so that anyone who's applying for an examination knows, hey, here's your opportunity to apply for the license simultaneously. And when you're successful on your examination, this is going to be very efficient for you.
That is a great idea. I don't think it's on the information page.
I don't think it is, and I think initially when we released it and allowed for separate payments for the application versus the license fee, I don't know that we fully understood how that would affect us in the back end. Right. So it's as we've had these applications released, we've only recently discovered that, wait a minute, it works much better this other way if everybody pays up front. So I don't think we've put anything publicly out there yet, but that is a great suggestion.
Yeah, mostly just on our phone calls. But yes, I love that. I think we can definitely share that as I do my, association updates and so on. I can definitely share that. And additionally, that wouldn't be bad to put it on the instructions page. We just posted the FD instructions page. We can start adding that to all of them, as well as putting it on our website. Yes, we didn't realize that it would be such delays, especially because someone will sign up and pay with their credit card, and then for the license, they pass the exam, and for the license, then they send a check, and then, the whole check process, that always takes a minute. So they're like, where's my license? I said, well, the check's still in the mail, and then going to cashiering, and so on. So
it's probably good to know that we don't have checks here in our office.
Right.
Even though we have the application, we don't have the check. That goes through a cashiering unit, and they've got to try and match it up. And it's a time. It does take a little bit of time.
Yeah. So I appreciate you sharing that with your students, and the Bureau will also continue to share that publicly. I think that's a great point. The next one that I'm really excited about that Sandra mentioned was the notification of change, corporate officer and trustee and manager. I think that is the biggest, what we call license maintenance, to maintain your license you've already been given versus an initial license. So that was probably it is the biggest, the three of those is the biggest amount of license maintenance applications we receive. So I think that is going to be a great efficiency. We're already working on those in development. So that's going to be a great one to see. Okay, moving on to E, the audit unit update. I will turn it over to Michelle Arthur, our audit manager, for her update on the audit unit's mandated reporting statistics.
Good morning, and thank you, Ms. Sanchez. We revamped the audit unit's presentation just a bit, so if we can move to the next slide, please.
Good.
So it's all in one document instead of the multiple as it was in the past. As we can see for the cemetery annual report, 74% have been received timely. The reason for that is that there's 22% that are not due yet, which means they either have a fiscal year and their fiscal year is not yet ended, or they're still in the process of completing their report, or the cemetery has asked for an extension. We've received quite a few of extensions this year as the same in previous years, so that's the reason for that 74. For the funerals establishments, we have 52% that have reported on time. That's not a very good statistic. However, we are currently in the process of sending over 400 warning letters to all of these late reportings, and that have been received by the Bureau that have been over 30 days late. So we will see a huge increase in the number of citations potentially in the following months. Moving on to quarterlies, the cemeteries are awesome at reporting on time. There's 95% of those quarterly reports are received on time. There's only 1% that have not yet reported. Similarly for crematory, 87% on time, 3% haven't reported. The hydrolysis facility, we now have 4, so that's why these numbers are a little different. They were 100% reported timely across the board for previous committee meetings, but this year there's 1 or 2 that have not reported on time or have been reported late.
Great. Okay. I would like to just mention here with the funeral establishments pre-need trust annual reports, the 52% that report timely, we want to thank you very much for doing that. And as Michelle said, in order for us to address this very low rate, we are going to be sending out warning letters this year. So a warning letter, if you do not know what it is kind of an educational letter, says this is due. Continued non-compliance can lead to enforcement action, which would lead to citation. So we are starting that process with the late funeral establishments in that reporting. Not necessarily all of them hold consumer money, but they do have to report to us even if they do not hold consumer money. So I think that's also an educational piece for the Bureau. So that's why we're sending warning letters. A lot of them are what we call their do not reports. So it's DNR. I know that has another term, especially in our industry. I'm sorry. You know how we love acronyms here, though, with the state. So the do not reports, we also have to receive those it's mandated that they send those in as well. So we are addressing that. We are working on that. It's a large undertaking because that does equal to about 500. So that is a pretty large undertaking for the Bureau to issue those. You know, then of course we have to file them all and make sure they follow the abatement. So, or follow it's directive, yes, to submit the report. Otherwise, our quarterly reporting is doing great, but we also track those and any lates. Just like with everything else, any lates we do can pursue either warning letter or enforcement action on those. Let's move to the next slide. I think we're done with this one.
One more for the audit unit. Just this, we have a couple of contact emails. So if you want to contact the audit unit directly, you can email us at auditcfb@dca.ca.gov. Or if you have any unit trust questions, the total return method, you can email unittrust@dca.gov or call the main line.
Yep. Yep.
Any questions?
Yeah, we're actually going to open up committee member comments for A through E. So Jolena, I see your hand up.
Thank you. Just a question regarding those that are late in submission. With any indication as to why it seems like an astronomical number that have not reported on time. Is there any inclination to query into why there's a delay? And year over year, are we finding more and more that are being delayed? And if so, is there any relation to another occupational group that might be causing this delay? Not to mention the shortage of CPAs, but just wondering.
I do not have any data to support as to why the late reporting has just so greatly increased. And I think that's why we're going to start pursuing this educational letter and hopefully start getting phone calls, and then that will help us with the data as to why. I haven't heard too much feedback yet about limited CPAs. My previous position was at the Board of Accountancy, so I have a little bit of historical knowledge on the struggles of peer reporting. So to get an audited financial statements is difficult from what I understand back then, just because of the difficulties of peer reporting and that whole process. But that was 5 years ago, so I don't know if that trend has continued, but that is something that that I can look into. I don't know how much it will help, but at least that will help us understand the why. Yeah, I appreciate that question. Is there any other committee member comments? Okay. Well, then we will
Gina,
move on
Maggie.
to. Oh, yes, Maggie, please.
I just want to, less of a question, more of a comment. I think the work to modernize the CFB in both the licensing and communication is super critical, and the progress that you guys have made deserves recognition. I think particularly to Jolena's question, I can attest that when I stepped into the role of having to do reports, there was a very steep learning curve, and the communication, part of it was certainly on me, but part of it was harder to get that information from the CFB. So I think as we're seeing this shift both in our industry and, even as you alluded to with the kind of major retirements that you're going to be seeing at the CFB, having that communication link is going to be really critical as we're stepping into this new phase. It's not going to just affect our industry. And then kind of in relation to that, as we're undergoing those significant changes, I think the 5-year plan is robust and, again, deserves to be celebrated. I think we're empowering consumers to make informed decisions when it comes to death care. We've seen a ton of innovative stuff come into the market from our end, which is amazing, and I want to celebrate creativity from the industry's end. But I think as we're witnessing that sort of passing of the torch, keeping our ultimate goal and mission and what our why is really important. And I think, let me say this carefully, creative thinking is welcome and essential for progress, but without the safeguards that you guys provide as the CFB to both industry members and consumers, I think we could be in a real tricky gray space. So unchecked creativity can ultimately be harmful. I think we've seen that in other states, and I just, again, want to congratulate the CFB because I think you guys have made really good progress in acknowledging that creativity, allowing industry members to try new things, but also protecting the public. And even though public safeguards can sometimes be viewed as cumbersome when you're in the industry, I think it's really crucial to protecting both consumers and industry members. So just want to make sure that we get that down on record. You guys have done a remarkable job, and I think it's going to be, again, really critical as we enter this next 5 to 10 year phase.
Yes, I could not agree more. And thank you very much for the kudos. We have definitely made it a priority here over the past several years to increase our communication, to keep it consistent between whoever you talk to at the Bureau, and really control that message that we're sending to make sure it is appropriate and correct. My wheels are spinning. I love that comment on the FD annual reporting because, maybe there is something that we can do here at the Bureau to assist with that steep learning curve. I'm not sure what that looks like, but Michelle and I are going to brainstorm offline about that on how we can support these funeral homes in getting these in on time, because that's really the goal. Is the compliance is the goal, not issuing 1 million citations next year. Please don't make us do that. So this year would be Michelle and I's focus on how we can support these funeral homes in getting those in on time next year, and how they can do that. Because I do agree, the next 5 to 10 years we're going to see a huge shift. We've been waiting for a while, and here it comes with retirements. I can see it in house already. So I am not. So don't worry about me. I will be walking us through it the next 10 years. Is there any more committee comment? And again, Maggie, thank you so much for all those kudos on our streamlining. We've been working on it. I appreciate that. Seeing none, okay. We'll move on to public comments. I do not see any. Yes, we have one in-house. Yeah, that's right. Oh, mention who you are first, please.
Jerry Desmond with the Cemetery and Mortuary Association of California. And more of a question or inquiry. I heard mentioning those that are converting to the unit trust methodology, and there's an email for it. Have there been some a few of those? Have they occurred?
We did. We got one about a year after it went live. So that timing was really rough in the financial market and the market out there. So we didn't get a lot of people that came in right away. So we had one come in, and then the following year we had like 30. So we are seeing cemeteries move over to the unit trust method. And if you do have unit trust questions, as it was on the slide, that email goes directly to our audit unit. We have a dedicated staff member who is our expert on unit trust that can definitely help support that changeover or those questions for cemeteries that, don't really know about it yet. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, moderator, we'll turn it over to you for public comment virtually.
All right, we are open for public comment on agenda item 4 via WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. For our mobile device users, you may need to hit the ellipses button, that's the ... in order to find your hand. We're going to wait just a few more seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request online, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, please. Thank you. Okay, next agenda items is agenda item 5 and 6. They're both being reported on by Ms. Sammons. So she's going to go through both of them, and then we'll do questions. So go ahead, Carolina.
Thank you, Gina. Good morning, committee members and members of the public. For chapter legislation update, agenda item number 5, we have one bill, Assembly Bill AB 3254 by Assemblymember Berman, Statutes of 2024. This is the Endowment Care Cemeteries reporting. AB 3254 is the sunset bill for the Bureau. It extends the repeal date of the Bureau's operation to January 1st, 2029. It requires each licensed cemetery authority to provide certain information to the Bureau as specified on or before January 1st, 2028. In addition, it requires the Bureau on or before July 1st, 2027 to convene a work group, including specified stakeholders, to consider options for ensuring continued maintenance of abandoned cemeteries, and to submit a report to the legislature summarizing the discussions and any recommendations. Finally, AB 3254 requires the Bureau to conserve the Endowment Care Fund following the surrender, cancellation, or revocation of a cemetery certificate of authority, unless ownership of the cemetery is transferred within 90 days in accordance with the existing statute. I'll move on to agenda item number 6, providing the regulations update. On July 16, 2024, the Bureau completed and the Office of Administrative Law approved the regulatory action for Assembly Bill 1381, Statutes of 2017. This regulatory action amended Title 16 California Code of Regulations, Section 1230. The amendments to Section 1230 renamed the section, reordered the subdivisions to match the order presented in controlling statute, and amended the process for whom may train apprentice embalmers. Lastly, on October 16, 2024, the Bureau completed, and again, the Office of Administrative Law approved the regulatory action for Assembly Bill AB 1560 by Assemblymember Flora, Statutes of 2023, crematories change in ownership. The proposed regulatory action authorized a crematory license to be assigned when a change of ownership occurs under specified conditions. This regulatory action amended Section 2326 of Title 16, California Code of Regulations, by relocating the crematory license requirements to its own regulation, Section 2326.01, and also added the changes in ownership requirements. This concludes my presentation for these two items, agenda 5 and 6. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to Gina for further comments.
Okay, we'll start here because that's where the screen is. So the regulatory update, by the time we got these documents posted to the website, it had not yet been approved by OAL, but AB 1560, the assignment of the crematory license, has since been approved, as Carolina reported. So that's very exciting. The two regulations, her two last regulations prior to, so good job. We are very excited. And I just greatly appreciate the support and technical advice that, that CMAQ helped with the crematory change of ownership to make that happen. And I'm excited to have cleaned up the apprenticeship training regulations. Those definitely now match the form, and those are much more clear to our licensees. I can, moderator, if you would please switch to agenda item 5 for a second. Very excited to announce that our sunset bill went through. Can you go to the, I'm sorry, moderator, I wasn't clear. Can you go to the handout instead of this one? Because I kind of want to point out some of the wording. So our sunset bill has been signed by the governor. That's great. We had a very successful sunset. And I am excited to announce that, you know, that just to go into a little detail, the reporting requirements that Carolina spoke of was just mandating that cemeteries participate and report in an additional endowment care sufficiency study that's been mandated for the Bureau to perform. So we had, I think, 99.9% participation last go round in 2017. But we wanted to make sure that that continued. However often the legislature wants one of those reports. So that's been mandated reporting. No changes in what we were really asking for since last report. There was a big task force that really established what we would need. We were very grateful for that. So we're just kind of just going off that. The next thing I'd like to speak to is the work group that will be convening to discuss abandoned cemeteries and submitting recommendations to the legislature. That kind of coincides with our next sunset report about, so I am expecting that that will be discussed in the legislature, probably our next round. And we will begin, I will keep everyone posted via advisory committee, you know, email blasts and Facebooks on what that work group is going to look like, but we will need industry support. We will need city and county support, as well as other interested stakeholders to be a part of that. We're looking forward to finding solutions here. Lastly, we needed to make it very clear in law that once a licensee does decide to walk away from a cemetery, that they cannot walk away with the public monies of the endowment care. So the Bureau will conserve that fund, which it already does now. However, it's very costly and we have to go through Superior Court to do so. So this now allows us to do this without going through Superior Court and saving the Bureau a significant amount of fees from the AG's office and going through Superior Court for that. So that was my additional comments. I'd like to turn it over to the committee. Is there anyone on the committee that would like to make public comment for agenda items, or not public comment, committee comment for agenda item 5 and 6? Okay, seeing none. All right, we'd like to open it up for public comment. Do we have public comment in-house?
Jerry Desmond again with the Cemetery and Mortuary Association of California, and of course very pleased with the extension of the sunset on the Bureau. And I just wanted to mention as we engage again as stakeholders with others, all stakeholders, we're interested in looking into what has happened with the abandoned cemeteries historically, and what are ways to identify when it's happening and to act sooner than them being abandoned. And we have that as sort of a research project that we were hoping to engage in as we get ready for the stakeholder process, because we certainly understand the difficulties and challenges with abandoned cemeteries and the harm to consumers that occurs.
That is great. We will be very interested in what you guys come up with for once we start that stakeholder work group. We will be very interested in that as well. We're definitely doing our part in evaluating endowment cares of those cemeteries that are almost sold out. That's also another thing that's helpful with the endowment care sufficiency study, is to identify those cemeteries that maybe don't have as much spaces to sell left. How big is their endowment care fund? How is it fully funded, and what does that look like? And then encouraging, you know, whether it's larger deposits, which we can do with 16 CCR 233G, and increasing theirs specifically because of the status or the state that they're in. So that is great, and I'm really looking forward to solutions, to discussions on this with the work group, because I think this is a gap in the law that we didn't really think of in 1939 when we developed this act, is what's going to happen with this piece of property when there's no longer any space to sell, and how do we make sure that those in this community and, you know, our historical figures are protected in perpetuity. So definitely looking forward to those. Thank you. Do you have anything else? Okay. Okay, moving on to public comment virtually. Moderator?
We are open for public comment via WebEx on agenda items 5 and 6. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button. For our mobile device users, you may need to hit the ellipses button, that's the ... in order to find your hand. It's curious. For a first time in a long time, we don't have any call-in users. With that said, we're going to take just a few more seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 7 is the licensing statistical report. There is a handout that was provided. I'll be providing an update on that today. So starting with our first slide, we always report on our average timeframes for our applications. And as reported for BizMod, you know, there are we're working in 2 different systems. We were expecting, you know, our processing times to increase. But as you can see with these, you know, I report on that, but then you look at the actual numbers, and there's only 2 areas where we are outside of our target timeframes. First is the funeral director exam, getting approved for exam. The average is 23 days instead of 20. And way down here, the CRM, which is the crematory manager exam, is 25 days versus 20. Everything else, the average time frame is within our targeted time frame. Now, I would like to say, which I always say, but I'm going to say it every meeting, the fastest way to get your application through the CFB is to ensure that you have a completed application. We want fingerprints done prior to applying so that when we go into the Department of Justice system, they're already there. Now, I understand some people's fingerprints can take 2 weeks, some can take 4 weeks. You know, we get that that's kind of a time frame game to play, but as long as it's done beforehand, by the time we touch it, 90% of the time they're already in. And then to make sure you attach all the documents. If you're doing a funeral establishment, make sure all your corporate officers have that certificate affidavit. You know, send us all the attachments. The best part about going through Connect is that there's some points you can't even move on without attaching your blank zoning certificate, whatever it is. So it's a really helpful tool because as you go through, it really just step by step tells you what you need to do next and what documents you need to attach.
Application online to come back later and complete it.
Good comment. So yes, as you move through Connect, let's say you need that certificate affidavit from your corporate officer and you don't have it yet to upload, you can exit out of Connect, go get that done the next day or whenever it's done, come back in and you pick up right where you left off. So you don't lose an application as you're going through it, which is another great benefit. But we do continue to watch our performance measures closely. The department also posts licensing and enforcement performance measures on their DCA data portal. You can just Google that and I think it just comes up. Okay, move to the next slide, please. Okay, so this is our licenses issued. That other one is so, hold on, I'm moving our screen here in the room around. There we go. Okay, so the blue is the 2022-23. So the blue on the left-hand side, the first one that is last fiscal year's. This is reporting a full fiscal year. So we do see we had a bit of a decline, about 80 less licenses issued this year than last year. And we can see that most of them are here in this cemetery salesperson area. That was about 100 there. So even though we were higher over here in the FDR, higher over here, funeral director, higher over here for embalmer, a little bit lower for apprentice embalmer. Last fiscal year, we had a lot of cemeteries change ownership. They do have to get a new license when they change ownership, so that's why we see a 10 here. But 2 is kind of our normal number for cemetery authorities. Between 1 and 5 is pretty normal. Crematory, we saw the same thing last year where there were a lot of new licenses issued for takeovers on crematories by new owners. And at that time, there wasn't the option to assign the same license number. So they did get a new license number, which is why it would qualify here under new licenses issued. But even though we saw those increases and these 2 anomalies here, we did see a decline mostly related to this, to the cemetery salespersons. Okay, and please go to the next slide. So as always, our license renewals are about 50-50. Total licenses renewed, we had over 9,488 that were renewed total. And I think this might be our highest online number, 49%. I think I haven't quite made, I want to make it over that 50, everyone. Renewals right now are online. However, we will be moving that just like we did with the salesperson I spoke to previously. We will be eventually in the next year or so moving renewals over to Connect. Okay, next slide, please. And here is our exam pass rates. Oops. Okay, there we go. We have 5 exams that must be taken on California laws and regs for 5 personal license types, which is funeral director, embalmer, cemetery broker, cemetery manager, and crematory manager. So we're struggling a little bit more. Historically, the funeral director was kind of like a 50-50. And this is great news to see that the pass rates have definitely increased for the funeral director applications. However, now we're seeing the switch for the crematory manager. So I don't have any data as to say why more are failing the crematory manager, but that is, a newer trend that we're seeing in this in this report. Okay, and as always, high embalmer pass rate. Thank you to our California schools. Okay, next slide, please. And always my favorite, I was licensing manager previously, so licensing always has a special place in my heart. I kind of already mentioned these already. In order to get your application through faster, get your live scan done. Make sure if you're applying online, you have the little ATI number that's listed on the live scan. If you're applying via paper, to send that live scan in with that live scan document with your application. Another thing is requesting your official transcripts. If those are required, requesting those ahead of time, we can get those before you apply. So we need those in. So the first time we look at that application, we have your live scan and we have your transcripts and we can continue our review. The corporate resolution, I think that's kind of a newer one that's on here to grant the applicant authority to submit the application. So what that means is that there's a funeral establishment that is applying for an application. That person because a person has to apply, an entity can't apply. So a person that's applying is not a corporate officer, that this may be your assistant or somebody that's doing it. You just need a resolution that states, yes, this person is approved by the officers to apply for this license. We need to make sure they're not applying, that they have authority from the corporate officers that they can submit this application. They have that authority. So that's for third parties that are applying, not the actual corporate officers. Next is zoning permit from the city or county. Another issue we've been seeing more recently is corporate officers are not matching the California Secretary of State filings. So we do compare that. We look up Secretary of State. We also check that at times of inspection. We check that at times of investigations. So as your corporate officers change, it is mandated that you inform the Bureau submit a form letting us know they need to get their live scan done, et cetera. So it is important that the corporate offices are matching what's on the California Secretary of State filings. Is that the last slide? Okay. Then
It is.
that takes care of the statistical reports. Moving on to 7, still under agenda item 7 is the update on examination development. This is just a verbal update. There's no handouts for it. We've just concluded the crematory manager examination. It was just released earlier this year. So just for a little history, if anyone's joining us that's not familiar with the exam development process, for the 5 license types that need to take a California law and regulation exam, these exams, in order to be defensible exams, must be reviewed. There must be an occupational analysis and exam development every 5 years or so. So we are in a constant exam development process. So we just completed crematory manager, so we're taking a breath, but very soon we have a meeting scheduled with the department's professional examination office, where we're going to examine which next occupational, to determine our next occupational and exam development. I'm so sorry. So please watch your emails and mailboxes, because we'll be recruiting licensees to act as SMEs for that process. I would like to thank every licensee that continues to help us on examination development. We need licensees that are new to the industry, that are old to the industry, in rural areas, in suburban areas, in urban areas. We really need all of that, a very diverse group, to help us with the trends in the industry and creating a defensible exam. So we do offer, it's not called a per diem, is it? We offer a per diem of $250 a day, and if there's any travel required, we do reimburse for that. And we also have tried to incorporate as many virtual options in exam development as possible. So I just want to thank everyone who has participated in that. Thank the department for guiding us on these exams every year, and we look forward to the next one. So keep an eye out. We also send little mailers to that group saying, hey, we need subject matter experts. So, so keep an eye on your mail too. So that takes care of agenda item number 7. Is there any committee members that have a comment on agenda item 7? Seeing none, is there any public comments? We'll take Jerry. That's right, please do.
Jerry Desmond, Cemetery and Mortuaries, California. Just an observation, if I saw the crematory manager exam passage rate is low, and there's a new exam that was released earlier this year.
This month.
This month. Oh, okay. So I was wondering if there's a correlation between new exam and failure rates, but if it's this month.
It was just this month, and that was the exam rates for the previous full fiscal year.
Okay.
So hopefully the new exam, we'll see maybe next October that changeover. But that is a very good point. So we'll be taking that into account definitely in our May meeting, when we'll have 6 months of data. Thank you. Any public comment virtually? I'll turn over to you, moderator.
We are open for public comment via WebEx on agenda item 7. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. For our mobile device users, you may need to hit the ellipses button, that's the ... in order to find your hand. We're going to take just a few more seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, please. Moving on to agenda item number 8, enforcement statistical report. We did the same kind of thing that we did with the audit unit, where we've turned it into more of a chart than all of the pie graphs and so on. I think this better shows, it better shows the numbers and comparisons here. So we have 2 full fiscal years here, fiscal year 23-24, and this reflects the full fiscal year of 22-23. We start with our completed number of inspections. The reason why this number changes every day is not only just from new licensees coming in, but there also may be directed inspections. There may be findings that require a follow-up inspection. So that's why that kind of varies each year, but it does stay between 11 and 1,200, I'd say, pretty consistently over the years. The complaints received, we are down 75, which is great. So 999. Oh, we're up 75. I was going the wrong way, sorry. We're up 75, but as you can see, the citations issued has pretty much stayed the same. So even though we received 1,000 complaints, we only issued 217 citations and filed formal discipline against the license for 6, which has remained consistent. I think over the years, we only have anywhere between 6 and 12 at the Attorney General's office at a time. And then that's the 6, this has actually been within this fiscal year, those that have been filed. It does take a while to complete the AG process. So formal discipline, which includes revocation of a license, a stipulated surrender of a license, probation, all of those will complete an Attorney General case, and which we qualify as formal discipline, and that 10 were completed last year, which is actually very high for us. So that is great. Okay, next slide. I always use the wrong. Okay, so normally that would have taken 3 or 4 slides, but as I said, we completed 1. So then we go on to our common, these are just common cemetery violations that we find. So this failure to pay the annual regulatory charge for each cremation made during the preceding quarter. So this relates to the lates that were shown in the audit unit update of those that did not file. That's the 1150 charge that has to be paid quarterly to the Bureau for each cremation made. So that's directly related to there. Next is maintenance standards. That is always a hot topic. Failure to supervise, failure to display your license, and failure to have ability of the consumer guide. Those would be our common ones. That doesn't mean that these out of the 200 are the majority in any way, but these are the more common violations that we see. We like to report it here, of course, to encourage compliance, kind of highlight these for anyone watching so they can make sure that these are done before our annual inspections. Okay, next slide. Go to the funeral side. So our most common funeral violations, failure to designate a manager, failure to display all caskets or have an accurate price list, unlicensed use of a funeral director, so they haven't designated a funeral director and they're using someone who is not licensed to run the establishment, kind of like a funeral arranger. We don't necessarily license every person that works in a funeral establishment, but you do have to have a licensed designated manager. So failure to display the license, that's the most current one, and failure to comply with the required list of services and pricings or posting of specified information on websites. So if you do have a website, it is very important that it's very specific as to the rules. If you have a website, one click, there has to be something that says prices or services. It has to be one click from the homepage. It has to list everything on your GPL. So it doesn't necessarily have to have prices, but it does need to list all your goods and services. So this is something we're also seeing where that's not matching or is outdated. So we always want to make sure, same with CFB, make sure our websites are always up to date. That takes care of the enforcement statistical report. Does the committee members have any questions or comments? Okay, we'll move on to public comments.
Bree Desmond with the Cemetery and Mortuary Association of California. Seeing in the cemetery violations common of failure to comply with the maintenance standards, I know there are a variety, there is quite a list of maintenance. Is there any insights into, you know, is the which of the maintenance standards is most violated, or most, or which, a couple of them, or all of them, or is there one that stands out that might be informative too?
Since I signed most all of them, I would say just from a memory, so I can't say that they are the most common, but the ones that stick out to me is mostly rodents, and not resetting gravestones, having gravestones sunken in, and then of course the weeds of the grass, especially around headstones and around the various statutes and things. So at times we'll see it mowed, but there'll be no weeding or anything. They're up to our knees and so on as we're walking around. I think those are the only three that really, like the trash receptacles, I don't see that. I don't see roads issues very often. So yeah, I haven't, no, just a few like where it's issues in the mausoleum. That's not common. So yeah, it's mostly just the grounds and the resetting of the sunken gravestones. Yeah. You're welcome. Is there any public comment virtually, moderator?
We are open for public comment via WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. For our mobile device users, you may need to hit the ellipses button, that's the ... in order to find your hand. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, I do. Thank you. So we have our our last agenda item today is our advisory committee members appreciation and recruitment efforts for 25-27 terms. So our terms here at CFB are 2-year terms, and you can reappoint, but we only have 2 meetings a year. So that's not, I don't feel like it's enough. So we are looking into potentially extending terms to just have our members be able to provide significant input and really get into the bureau business. So I just want to take a moment to say how much we appreciate our current members. I think that I just want to thank each of you for your dedication and your service, your willingness to participate in these important public meetings. It really is important, and it meets our values of transparency, our values of accessibility, and our values of accountability. I appreciate the discussions, the questions, and just everyone's attendance and taking the time out for these meetings. So I really appreciate our current members. I will be reaching out to discuss any reappointments personally, but we're also going to be recruiting for the vacancies that we will have. So you will see some CFB outreach I think we have like a set of mailers that we put out, Facebook, email blasts, website. I do have the application up continuously under Quick Hits on the right-hand side of our webpage. The application for advisory committee member is up all year round, so I have gotten a couple applications already. If you're online, thank you. But I will be recruiting for more of those, and that will really start next month. So I just appreciate you all here and dedicating your time to this industry. Both licensees and public members really gives this committee a great balance. So I just wanted to say thank you and let the public know what's coming up next. So is there any comment from the committee members on this topic? Seeing none, we'll move to any public comment. We don't have any here in the room. Moderator, we can move to virtual.
I saw a couple hands from our members.
Oh, good. Sorry, I guess I can't see that on this screen. So go ahead, just speak out, whoever has their hand up.
Okay, this is Jean Okui, a member.
Oh, hi, Jean.
Hi, I've been a member for quite a while, and I just want to say appreciation to you, and especially to Gina. We have reached out, had her attend, a few of the meetings for the Funeral Consumers Alliance of Los Angeles, and she's been so open, so so helpful in all the all that we need. So I appreciate all of the people there working there, and I've seen in my feeling is a great improvement over maybe 10 years ago when I used to attend some of your meetings. And I just feel like you're going the right direction. Thank you.
Jean, thank you so much. Thank you for your dedication to the Bureau just in general, even when you're not a member. And I know this is kind of your second round of being a member. You had a break a few years in between and really stepped up for this last couple of terms, and we just have appreciated you. Thank you.
I hope you don't mind that I'm going to echo Jean's sentiments, and thank you so much for allowing us to provide feedback, input, participation as much as possible with the Cemetery and Funeral Bureau, and specifically for the dynamic collection of individuals that are selected on the advisory committee. I am very hopeful that your next recruitment will be absolutely successful and that you'll continue getting the diverse and broad perspectives of all of our practitioners within the state of California, whether they're on the cemetery, crematory, alkaline hydrolysis, possibly even one of our newer NOR facilities that will be coming on board in the very near future. So thank you for allowing us to participate.
Thank you, Julita. Thank you for those kind words. You have been a great asset to the committee. Thank you so much.
All right.
Okay. Oh, go ahead, David. I'm sorry. I forgot about that part. Please.
We're going to call for public comment on agenda item 9 via WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. For our mobile device users, you may need to hit the ellipses button, that's the ... in order to find your hand. We're going to take a few more seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request, I think we're ready to continue.
Okay, well, that is our last agenda item with no further comments, except thank you, members, again. Thank you, Carolina, and we'll see everyone soon with maybe a new committee. So this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all for coming.
Thanks so much, everyone.